Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
You may be doing something that is preventing you from changing your life. You don't even know you're doing it. Probably you have these goals, but you never attain them. Self-sabotage. That's what we're going to talk about today. She is somebody who helps many of us with that and also move our life forward as a life coach, hypnotherapist, energy healer. Raquel Williams is back with us. Welcome. How are you?
I'm well, Steve. How are you?
Very well. Yeah. Good to have you back. And would you say that most of us are self-sabotaging ourselves?
I would say at some level, all of us have some of that. Some of us less, some of us a lot more, but yes.
Okay. And when I think of that, can I give you an example?
Yeah.
So I have a friend. She's wonderful. She does everything for everybody. She does charity work. She has her own organization, doesn't do well financially. She's a single mom. And I feel that she has this mentality that I just can't, I'm never going to make money. I can't make money. Even though she connects people and does a great job, all the stuff over here, I think that she's self-sabotaging herself based on her marriage and maybe also her upbringing. Because her husband, she would share that he would say certain things to her about money and things like that. And I think that's messing her up. So she's taking these little jobs instead of taking a job that's going to make money or putting all her efforts into helping other people. Wonderful, but you got to take care of yourself and your kids at the same time. Does that sound like a form of self-sabotage?
It does. It does. And that's all wrapped around a belief system, right? So if there's a belief system that says it's impossible to make a lot of money, it's hard to make money,
Right.
I have to work really hard, or it's just not in the cards for me, I don't come from money, whatever it is, there's so many belief systems. And basically where we come from plays a big role from that, right? So how were our parents around money? How were their parents around money? Sometimes it's like a generational thing, right? Yep. But this idea, usually when you see poverty at any level, it's down the line within a family lineage. And sometimes you can have someone from the same family, one actually will do pretty well, and the other one will be completely like the other side of the spectrum. So it all depends on, how did you process what was happening when you were growing up? How did you see this idea of money, right? How did you believe money was made? Was it easy? Was it hard? Could you only make so much because you only come from this? So all that plays a factor. And if your friend if she has this belief system that she can't have more than a certain amount or live a lifestyle above this, or she has any of those ideas, then number one, she's going to attract a mate that has that same line of thinking, right? So because like attracts like, so she's going to attract someone in her life. So every time he expresses the lack or the scarcity or the not enoughness, that will trigger that vibration in her. So they're kind of dancing to that tune together of, we just can't get past this, and they just won't. So let me give you an example too with that. So if there is an opportunity that comes her way that would pay her more, she's going to talk herself out of it.
Yep.
Her mind's going to give her 100 reasons as to why she can't do that job and she shouldn't do that job.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. And what you're saying is, it just resonates with so many of us generationally as well. Depending on how old you are, that there was a generation there, they were real careful about what they spent. And even now, if you look at people that are in their, mid 60s, 70s, even if they have a fair amount behind them in terms of assets or whatever, they're still being careful because of what they remember when they were growing up. That's what potentially their parents lived through, maybe part of the Depression or the tail end of it, or whatever it might be.
All that plays a factor.
Yeah.
All of it. And so even if you find yourself making money, I've seen this. you land something, you start doing really well at it, and you start making more money than you've ever made before. You know what's going to happen? You're going to spend it faster than you're going to get it. You're going to find every reason to spend that money. You're going to buy things. You're going to buy other people things. It's like it's hot. That money's hot and you can't keep it. You got to let it go. And I've seen that so many times where people are like, I make good money, but I'm always broke. Right. So it really doesn't matter how much money you make. It's how do you steward that money, right? How do you invest it? How do you look over it? But if you have a lack mentality, none of that's going to come into play. Think about lottery winners. Have you ever heard that when people win the lotto, I think it's like 2 to 4 years, if it's this huge amount, they're broke. Why is that?
Yeah. They don't know how to deal with it because they get an accountant, somebody who's good. If you look, I believe it's like 90% of people who won substantial money in a lottery, $1 million, 2 on up, they're miserable. They're miserable. It was good for a while, but then life changed and either they spent it all and they're worse off now, or it changed their life in a bad way. Yeah.
And I remember reading an article on that, and literally there was, like, I guess they did a study on it, and after, I think it was 2 to 4 years, none of them had that money. They were bankrupt, they were broke, they were worse off than before. But unless you carry a belief system that says that you're worthy of it, that you can live that lifestyle, you will sabotage yourself. You will make bad financial decisions, bad investments, give money away. You will just do, and of course, it's not consciously. This is a subconscious behavior. But you will just make decisions that have literally that money just flowing from you, sabotaging the opportunity, sabotaging your life. That is a form of self-sabotage.
Even to the point where I would imagine if somebody feels that they don't deserve this money, it's in, oh God, it's wonderful to have. I don't deserve it. I don't know how this ever happened, but whatever windfall came in, sounds like everything's gonna be all right, but they don't even know that they're sabotaging that income. Again, just blowing it all, getting rid of it. Don't even know they're doing it.
And over time, it'll be gone.
And it'll be gone.
They'll find themselves in a worse off position, but subconsciously, they'll take a deep breath and they'll feel better because they're back to energetically where they believe they should be and where they're comfortable. That's the interesting thing about belief systems and energy.
Wow. Go a little deeper in that, could you? How that looks?
Yeah. So if I'm in a relationship, the women are going to relate to this one. All right. So women, typically I hear a lot of women, and this used to be me, that, yeah, he's just too nice. We look for the bad boy. We look for the guy with the edge. We look for the one that is kind of the troublemaker. There's an allure to that. There's an attractiveness to that. And here comes this really nice guy. Great financially, super sweet, just loves the hell out of you. And after a while, you're just annoyed. You're just like, he's just too nice. I just can't. What is that? Why does that happen? Because there's a belief system that says, number one, I don't deserve that. I don't deserve to be loved that way. And if you grew up in an environment, and this is most of the time the case, where you're seeing a somewhat abusive relationship with your own parents or a disconnect, they tolerated each other for your sake, and they think they did you a favor. But really what you learned is that that's what love is. Love is disconnect. Love is, it isn't touchy-feely. It's angry. It's distant. So if you have this idea that that's what love is, and then you meet somebody that wants to hug you and kiss you and love on you and just sings your praises, you can't stand it. And you don't even know why. You're like, he's so nice. Or no, he's too nice. And then you meet the jerk and you fall in love. You're comfortable energetically. That's where you feel like you belong because that's all you know. It sounds crazy.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. It is so on point. It's crazy that it's so on point. It is. And I
Yeah.
was in a previous relationship many years ago. Um, when you say comfortable, that she was, her father, there was abuse involved there. He's just yelling and lots of that going on.
Mm.
The only time that I feel that she felt comfortable is when she would try and engage me and into a yelling match or something that
Yeah.
where it escalate. That's not me. I don't know. Work it out. Done. On to the next thing. It's all good. And I would resist it. And that's right to the end. That's what I was dealing with. And it took time for me to figure that out.
Yeah.
But it was there. And same thing.
Yeah.
I could go on for a half hour. Just the example you gave, where somebody's with a nice guy, not like a pushover, somebody who, and many women don't want a nice guy. They want a guy who's kind. There's a difference. So he's there and they gravitate toward the bad boy. Oh, got a motorcycle, got tats. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. But
Mhm.
that whole illusion of that's me. I want that. Why?
Well,
What?
here's the thing. That's me. I want that. And then they get with that guy and they're always crying. There's drama. There's,
Yeah.
you calling your girlfriend because he's not very nice to you. So consciously, you want that. But subconsciously, this programming that's going on energetically, this energy inside of you doesn't want it. It doesn't resonate. You're not on the same page, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you think you want it, and then you're in it and you're so unhappy because this guy's a jerk and he really doesn't love you and he doesn't give you the time and he doesn't pay attention to you and he doesn't really treat you the way you want to be treated. Yet you go with the nice guy who wants to give you all of that and you feel like you're crawling out of your skin, Steve, and you don't understand why. This is a big deal in relationships.
It really is. It happens all the time. And when you're with the guy who isn't really right for you, you'll do anything. Here, take my money. You're the one until you realize. And doesn't it happen, Raquel, often where I don't want to say women, but guys, same situation.
Sure.
I can't meet anybody. They're all the same. It's a freaking jerk. I don't know what's going on there. You attracted it. You brought that
Yes.
in.
Yes. And I heard someone say once, and it really resonated with me. When you notice those patterns in your life and you keep attracting the same thing, you really don't want to force the issue, and you really do not want to bring that relationship in, because you're going to cause yourself more harm and damage than anything. Take the time, like when you recognize these patterns in a behavior and just a certain way that it keeps happening. I keep meeting people and it's like the same thing keeps happening. That's a clue. Take pause and say, okay, I need to get help here because I am literally attracting the same scenario over and over again. And the ones that push and just know they want to lock down that relationship, that's a form of self-sabotage, because they know, but they're going to just push past it and get into the relationship anyway, because at a certain level, that is what love is supposed to be, or that is all they deserve. So that's the really interesting thing about this. Consciously, you can think, oh, that's ridiculous. I would never do that to myself. Well, consciously, yes, I would agree with you. But we're not dealing with your conscious mind.
No. And it could be you look at, the bad boy and you think, but he's got so a couple of things here and there. You don't see it. You don't see it until you figure it out. And I got it. I seem to attract the same type of people. One particular characteristic. And I wonder why that is. And I have some theories on that, but that's just, it's being conscious of it, realizing it instead of, and a lot of people are, when they complain, I don't know why aren't there any good guys out there? Why is that? So how do you find that out? Is it through hypnotherapy? Does somebody enlighten you as to what they're dealing with in terms of relationships, or what they're doing in terms of what's not working for them? And then you can help figure out where the self-sabotage is coming in?
Yeah. I mean, people typically, unless they're completely asleep, people typically will start to recognize those patterns. You get to a point where you start getting fed up, where you get really discouraged, where you start losing hope that a money situation is going to change, you're ever going to find love in your life. You know, whatever it is, you do get to that point where you hit a wall. And that's typically when people will say, okay, what's going on here? Why is that happening? Sometimes it takes people longer than others, right? They need to keep hitting themselves over the head until they actually get to that point. But I think once people get to that point, they are ready to understand. They recognize that something's wrong. They just don't know what. They don't know how to identify it or why it's happening or how to change it. And a lot of times people will come to me and they'll say, okay, Raquel, I was really thinking about this. And I think this is happening because of this. When I was a kid, this happened, or I think this is happening because of this. And I always tell them, take a deep breath. I don't need you to tell me why you think it's happening. We're going to learn that. We're going to discover that, right? So don't worry about trying to figure it out. We'll figure it out. And we want to release not only the idea and the thoughts around why the pattern, but then energetically, we want to release it from your body. This is another big piece that I don't think a lot of people understand, is that it's not just understanding the why and the how, but it's also being able to recognize where are those emotions trapped in the body and allowing the body to release them. So it's really body, heart, and mind. It's the whole thing. And really getting those to be coherent and run at the same energy or frequency.
Well, you've said before a number of times that many of us don't feel worthy or that we're good enough. Isn't that kind of almost like the baseline for all of what we're talking about in terms of self-sabotage?
In my opinion, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody might have a different opinion, but my experience with my own life and my experience in what I do in business, the underlying root always comes down to unworthiness, not feeling like you're enough. Yes.
Yeah. And it's all right there. Like I'm not good enough to earn that money or have that job. I'm not worthy enough of this person. Even though I'm a wonderful guy. I'm not worthy enough. There's all different excuses that come into play. Is it during hypnotherapy where a lot of that stuff is uncovered?
Yeah. During hypnotherapy, and you worked with me a little bit, Steve, I'm also able to just intuitively say, okay, we've got this going on and we got to deal with it, right? So sometimes it's in the hypnotherapy session. Sometimes within my coaching, I will do energy release and work with people with whatever's trapped in the body and release it and get to a session I just had before speaking with you. We found that this gentleman had what's called an allergy idea. So he had a concept or an idea about moving forward or money it kind of works like this. You know how if you're allergic to perfume, and you walk into a room with that perfume, you're going to have a literal physical reaction to it, right? Like an allergy response. Fascinating enough, you can have the same thing with an idea or a concept or a belief where there's a faulty connection about that belief. So whenever you try to, for him, it was about moving forward and money. So whenever the idea of making more money, and he does well right now, but whenever it's going past that, there are literal physical reactions that would happen in his body, and pain in the wrist, pain in his knees, right? So we started releasing those and the pain went away. What's interesting is that idea was a generational belief. So we're able to tap in and see Kay started with his mother and it went like a certain amount of generations deep. I know that's getting into a whole other area, but this is energy. So when you're talking about energy and belief systems and generational stuff, that's how in depth it can go. So it's not just, okay, the belief systems and the hypnotherapy, major tool. I love it. And it's going to bring you a ton of clarity. But then let's deal with these other energetic things happening in the mind and body so that we can get everything running coherent together. And then it's like, you start to flow the way you're supposed to. Like I imagine a river that just flows, and that's how our bodies and energy is supposed to go. But imagine when a bunch of rocks and branches and stuff start falling in there, and now the water, there's barely a trickle. That's what happens in our chi or in our energy. We got to take all the branches and rocks and everything out so that we can literally start to flow in our thoughts and our ideas and our desires and attract at the same level what it is that we believe that we want. So, sorry,
And
I went down a rabbit hole. But
not at all. That's how we learn. And even what you said, the generational thing, that's been just passed on, those beliefs, and now it's on to him. And if he didn't fix it or acknowledge it, he'll pass that on to his kids.
That's right. That's right. And the beauty is when we release it from him, we release it from his children. So
in a couple of minutes we have here, I want to ask you about that. So I've understood that when you release that stuck energy, everything after it. So let's say it goes back to a certain time. Let's say your childhood. Sequentially, all those episodes or situations where that challenge presented themselves all go away. It's just like, it's almost like just taking the thread. I pulled it up. That's it. I'm good. So, and then, like you said, future generations, once you identify it, does it really work that way?
it does. It does, because it's energy, right? So if I'm carrying an energy, people can get inherit things in the womb. They can inherit things that are just generational. Sometimes you can get in the womb and it's not generational. It's just something that your mother went through that she absorbed, that you absorbed. Or it's generational that she got it from her mother, her mother, her mother, her mother down the line, right? Either way, you have to identify it to be able to release it. Because unless you identify it, how do you set your intention to know what it is you're working on? So you really need to know what is it and where does it come from. But once you do release it, yes, it's almost as if you can imagine something just dissolving into dust. And once it dissolves and it's gone, then it cannot continue. It's just gone. You just let it go. You released it.
And not to get too much deeper on this thought, but if you believe in past life, let's say it was 2 lives back, and now you've found it, you eradicate it, and then everything past that, same kind of situation. Do you believe that's possible?
I would imagine so. I'm not a past life expert, so I don't want to speak too much on that.
Sure.
But if
Sure.
you're looking at energy and the same way it would work generationally, right? Then why wouldn't it work the same way, especially if it's something that was repeated over and over and over again until it was finally realized or released or learned or whatever it is, right? Yeah. So I would imagine that that's how that would work.
And using the principles of energy, there's no time, no space.
Right. And that's the whole point.
Right. So
that's the whole point. Yeah. That's why generationally, it doesn't matter if it's 20 generations past, future generations from your children and them forward, because there is no time or space. Once it's gone, it's gone, it's dealt with. You release it. And
my personal jury is still out on the past life thing. I'm not saying I don't believe it. I need to learn more about it, but all of it seems very reasonable, in terms of, that energy being stuck there a couple of lives, whatever back. There are a certain time period that resonates with me, the 1800s. I got nothing. I love watching movies. I can go online and watch photographs, the latter half of 1800s all day long. That was great. The technology was just starting, simpler way of life and all of that. Maybe I'm from that time. I don't know. It's got to be a reason. I don't know.
There's so much we don't understand. Yeah. And I always tell people, and even with myself, I feel like I'm always learning. I'm always coming across this new thing that is teaching me, like blowing my mind. Even in the middle of a session, I'll be like, whoa, wait a second, right? So there's so much we don't know and understand that I really encourage people to just have an open mind. I tell my kids all the time, what if? Just leave that open, right? What if? Because if you're wrong, then you're closing the door to something that could change your life. So just what if?
We don't know, certain things we can't prove, but we can't prove wrong as well. So then don't close the door, just keep it open.
Yeah.
How do we find you? Best way to reach out, have a conversation, see if it's a right fit. If somebody feels that they're self-sabotaging or is stuck somewhere.
Yeah. My website's raquelrwilliams.com. And that's Raquel with a Q, RAQUEL, rwilliams.com. My number's 415-347-6861.
I can say this from experience. You're fantastic.
Thank you.
You're like a little pit bull. You go right there, you figure it out, which is
I've
good.
been told that, Steve. So that's why I laugh.
Yeah, well, that's what I feel. You're like, lasered in during a session. I think, yep, I got that. I'm figuring that out. And then you take action and you help us, move forward. So yeah, start the process, change your life. Don't self-sabotage. You're doing it. You might not even know you're doing it, but you're doing it. And it might not be something huge. It could be, maybe something minimal, but you're doing it. Find out why. Raquel, great talking with you today.
Thank you. You too.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.